if you're testing a web application that's not in your native language, it's a really good idea to translate that application so that you can understand the greater context and the features and functionality that is available to you. Well, you might be able to discover traditional web application vulnerabilities like injection vulnerabilities without the use of translation. You are much more likely to miss contextual and business logic vulnerabilities if you don't understand how the actual application works. So as you can see on my screen here on the left-hand side, we are on the visitmexico.com website. And as you can probably tell, it is in Spanish. Now, if all we need to translate is the text that appears within the browser, Firefox has a relatively new translate feature. A really great advantage of this is that that translation is local. So if you're working on a sensitive application, we can translate this without sending any traffic. And I can demonstrate that by translating it right now while we look at my proxy history, which is not filtering for anything. And so we can see the translation has occurred and there's no traffic in my proxy history. So we haven't sent any of that text to a server that is not under our control. Now, one important thing to note is that if it's your first time translating in Firefox, it will first download both the code and the models in order to do so, which could balloon the size of your Burp project. So something to keep in mind, you might want to make sure that those files are available before you go to translate so you're not sending those through your proxy. Something to be aware of. Now, this is a great translation feature when it works. Unfortunately, there have been many cases, and notably, of course, it's still in beta. You can see that when you open the menu for it, but there are a number of cases where it fails, but importantly, it will never work on content that won't typically be rendered in the browser. So one example would be a JavaScript content for example, you might have a JavaScript file where variable names and other names used are not in English or not your primary native language, and you might want to translate those so that you can better understand the actual logic there. And your browser may not do it. Now, maybe if you open up a file in the browser directly and translate it, that might work. But that could also be a slow workflow depending on what you're doing and what you're testing. Just as one example, I have a test JSON file. So if you have JSON files in different languages, you can translate those within the browser. If I go to the translate feature here, it recognizes that we are dealing with a Spanish file, and it can translate it just fine. There we go. It took a moment, but it got it done. But for many cases, it might be a lot easier to do this translation natively within Burp. Of course, Burp does not have a translation feature, but if you have a command line translator, you can easily integrate it into Burp. You might not always get perfect results because anytime you send some type of non-language or something with syntax in it that is not language to be translated, the translators will have a rough time dealing with them. But nevertheless, you can usually get a decent result for anything that you're trying to translate, regardless of the format it's in. So what I've done on this system is I've installed a tool called Translate Locally, and in addition to the tool, I've installed a specific model, the Tiny model for Spanish to English translation. And so you can see how I'm going to use it on the command line. I'm just echoing hello in Spanish, and it's going to do that translation for me. It only takes a second. Now, because we can use this on the command line, we can integrate this with Piper in order to make it available within Burp. So the very simple way to do this is to create a new message viewer, and I'll go into the configuration here. I've just called this ES arrow EN, right? Spanish to English. And I don't have any filter on it, so I'm letting myself run it in any message viewer, any type of request or response. And if I click the command, you can see that this simply is just a reference to a script that I have saved on my system. And if I open that file, you can see that it is just as simple as the command that we just ran. It's invoking the tool, and it's doing so with the specific model to translate from Spanish to English. Now, this specific model, maybe it's because it's a tiny model, is not super effective. I've noticed that it's failed to translate a number of words in some cases. You might do better by configuring your local translator with a better model or using a different tool. There are seemingly a number of tools available that can do translation locally, and all of them, anything that works on the command line like this, you can integrate with Piper and therefore integrate with Burp. So I'm going to make sure that that's enabled. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go to repeater where I already have this request, which you can see, of course, is available in my GitHub content. The request is just to get a JSON file, and the JSON file contains Spanish words that we want to translate to English. So if you're working within Burp, normally you wouldn't have any type of translation available. And depending on what you're doing, you very well might want that translation to immediately and quickly see the outcome of your actions rather than having to copy that content and hope that your browser is going to be able to translate it. So by implementing this Piper message viewer, which we can see there's a tab here, all we have to do is click on it. Piper will send the body content to the tool. The tool will translate it. We will get that back, and we can see that we've translated some of the words. You can see some of the words have not translated correctly, like the word for engineer. That might be a consequence of the specific model we're using. You can use different models that are available. This one was just a quick and easy one to get started with. And of course, it works very fast, as you can see. But it got, I think, most words, maybe almost most words. It maybe got about half of the words here. You might have better success on different content. Nevertheless, that is the workflow for building native translation directly within Burp. It's all local, so you're not sending sensitive data anywhere. And yes, it does break our JSON. You can see that we did have JSON, and sending it through the translator does not know how to perfectly deal with that. So we get something that is not quite JSON back. And for other syntax and formats, you will probably encounter various challenges and issues. Probably you'll see some syntax that gets mistranslated because it's not meant to be translated. But as long as you have both, I think it's usually easy enough to understand, what was the syntax that has been mutilated, and what are the words that you're looking for. Of course, if you are working in more specific workflows, or if you're working with a specific type of data, you could always implement additional extensions to this functionality. So you could first parse it with something, like if we're dealing with JSON, you could use JQ to extract certain elements, then send it to the translator, so you very clearly know what you're getting back. And all of that you can implement in Piper with your custom scripts. I found from a recent test where browser translation was not working well for me, it was just a very simple, easy method to just read the words that I was not familiar with in the language that I was testing. And I hope if you run into this situation, you will find the same.